Great to see everyone again. Thank you for having us. Thank you to Byrne for having us. So yeah, I'll start off.
Yeah.
Basically, Leila and I are going to sit and talk to you a bit more in detail about the ins and outs of agenting and management. I'm sure there's many questions that you guys have, so we'll probably just touch on the basics. We'll talk about a little bit about branding, and then we'll let you guys ask any questions specific to either category. Just to give you a reminder about who I am one of the senior agents and part owner of Bullittagency. We do the bookings worldwide for artists such as Deep Dish, Dubfire, Hot Since '82, and him, and about 50 other artists. So pretty much our whole day revolves around booking shows, right? But as beginning DJs in the industry, it's good to think to yourself three different categories, right? When do I know that I need an agent, right? How do I go about getting an agent? And then how do I work with an agent once I have one, right? So first of all, how do I know I need an agent, right? So most of you probably have maybe residencies in your local town, which is great. You got them without an agent. You learned how to get that without having someone do it for you. Maybe an introduction was made, but you did it yourself. And it's actually really important that you start off doing your bookings on your own. You know, it gives you a chance to connect with people in the industry, which is extremely important. It gives you a chance to learn how to do the bookings, how to negotiate, and it actually helps you because when you have an agent, you want to be able to know all these things and not blindly trust another person with your career. So, you know, you start off on your own, you start off booking shows little by little, and you grow outward. You start maybe with your local scene, you get a residency there, and then maybe you branch out to surrounding cities and then surrounding countries, and you grow your profile and your network. Typically, there'll be a point as you grow where it's hard to do both the bookings for yourself and travel and produce. And that's when you learn, okay, now it's time. I can't do this all on my own. I need someone to help me. Right? Before that, you know, unless someone actually comes up and is interested in you, it might be hard to get the attention of me or any other agent. So you get to a point where you can't handle both, and then you start looking around. Right? How do I get an agent? There's many ways. There's no set definition on how to go about doing it. You know, the key is just to try everything. You know, you always want to be doing something to try and meet an agent or someone in the industry, trying to get your name into various trade magazines, whether they're local, like your local music magazine, or something maybe international, like DJ Mag or Mix Mag, those kind of things. If you're producing, you know, you want to try and get your music into the Beatport charts or having other bigger DJs play. If you are a resident at a club, you know, it's always important to meet the bigger international DJ who's playing. You know, it's a perfect opportunity for you to meet whoever you're opening for and become friends with them and maybe give them your music to listen to. As an agent, I get requests every day to join Bullet. You know, how do I choose between every single person? Yes to this one and no to this one. And sometimes you say yes to the wrong person, and sometimes you say no to the right person, and you know, it's a trial and error thing. One of the most important things that I do is I speak to the artists that we currently work with, and I ask them who they admire right now, who's up and coming. So if Hot Since '82 played in Slovenia, and one of you was the opening DJ, and you got to meet him, and you did a great job, maybe he'll come to me and say, hey, this guy that opened for me in Slovenia was amazing. So you should check them out, and I will. Or if I'm at a music conference and a lot of people are buzzing about one particular DJ, I'll pay more attention to it. So while there's no set way to go about getting an agent, it's important to just try every single type of method possible. Then the last question would be, what do I do once I have an agent? So you are fortunate enough to get someone interested in you and want to sign you, and they bring you on board. The common misperception is that, oh, my work is done. Now the agent will do everything. I can just sit back and wait for the gigs to come in. Done. No. In fact, it's the opposite. You know, now that you have an agent, you have to work even harder. You can never trust anyone to do as good a job for your career as you'll do for yourself. Right? You always want to remain active in it, whether it's working with a manager, whether it's working with an agent or a publicist. You always want to be asking questions. You always want to be providing them with material. So for an agent, you know, what I would do is sit down with that agent and Usually you negotiate the arrangement beforehand. A lot of times the usual commission rate between an agent and an artist is 10% or 15%, depending on if they do the travel for you. If they do travel, it's a little bit higher. And then sit down and map out a strategy. You want us to map out a 6-month plan, a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, and a 5-year plan. That way you're creating short-term goals, and then you're also creating long-term goals. And when you make your calendar, you want to try and figure out when is the best time to be in a certain place. Maybe you know that Carnival in Brazil is the best time to be in Brazil. So you want to be, okay, I want to be in Brazil in February. Or the Sonar Music Festival is in Barcelona in June, so I want to be in Europe in June. And as you become a more respected and high-profile DJ, you have more power to command when you'll be in certain places. But even if you're not, it's always good to try and set goals. So sitting down with the agent and mapping out the calendar is the first one. And the second one is always checking in with the agent and giving them new stuff to sell you with. You know, we'll talk about branding in a second, but you can't just assume that once you're on a high agency, you're going to get signed. You're going to get booked for shows. You need to constantly be giving them more music to sell you with. You need to maybe create a brand to help market you better. And you want to make sure, obviously, that your performances are on point. So basically, with an agent and working with an agent, those are the 3 things you want to think about.
So I'm Leila from Anglo Management. As a company, we represent Pete Tong, Fatboy Slim, Idris Elba. We also work with bands. So we have the band Madness, some smaller, more kind of up-and-coming younger bands at the moment, and then some of the more kind of underground DJs, so Hot Since 82 and him, and a selection of others. So the way that management would work, we work with an artist to pull together a strategy as to what their career goals and aims are. And then from there, we work out what we need to do to get you to that point. Obviously, they have to be realistic. You have to manage your expectations. We have to tell you what is achievable and when. Obviously, your goal might be, to be the biggest DJ in the world. That's great, but that's going to take time. So it's kind of, we work together as a team to get the process rolling. As management, we work incredibly close with the agents. So as Ryan was saying, if you're working directly with an agent, you pull together the strategy. For us, this is something that we do with the agent. Yep. And we kind of, it's something that we don't need to, not involve you with, that's the wrong word, but we do that on your behalf because we are the guardian of your brand. So we have your best interests at heart and we will plan accordingly. There's times when actually you might say, oh, well, I want to do this. And we say, but it's not time to do it yet because we're working on a bigger long-term viewpoint. I think actually I'd put a big note about it being a misconception that when you get a live agent, you think, oh, that's it, I don't need to do anything now. And that's completely untrue. And it's the same with management. We need tools to be able to help us do our job. So, for example, whether that's you're doing a mix every couple of weeks that we can then put through your social medias, we can put it on SoundCloud, we can get your name out there, get people talking about you. We then pull together teams around you, whether that's tour managers, PR companies, all of these different people that are all working behind the scenes on all of these big names and pushing that in. So you might be out around the world, flying around, doing your job, but behind the scenes, we're telling people about the show that you've just done, the reception that you just received. We follow up on all of that and keep the machine ticking over. The relationship between the agent and the management, again, it's incredibly important, and we work together on multiple artists, so we have our own relationship. So that's something that is a strength for other artists, because if we're speaking to Ryan about, say, one particular artist, and then we know that we're looking for supports for the same shows, we then work together, throw in other names to the mix, and it's a team effort. We've actually had situations where our agencies have shared artists. We represented an artist and we said, hey, this would be a great opportunity for your management team, and they agreed to it. So, exactly. Yeah, it's all connected. It definitely, and this business is all relationship based, so you won't have time to forge certain relationships, and you need people to do that on your behalf. I wanted to kind of briefly talk about the things that managers do for people. So it can be obviously the day-to-day, which is getting you from A to B, working with the agent to get those bookings into the diary, planning where we want you to be. If we want to set a target of a particular festival, a particular show, working around that, how do we get to that? What do you need to play before that so that those people can see you and have a buzz around you? That's kind of what we're doing behind the scenes. We also then look about ways that we help you to become commercially successful. So whether that's investment in record labels, facilitating, setting that up, managing the administration of that for you on your behalf. And then through, once you've built a profile, then going on to working with other brands, getting brand endorsements, just ways that you can kind of be plugging in revenue streams into what it is that you do. Which then kind of all moves into the kind of brand and PR side of things. So obviously you are the best guardian of your brand, it's you. And you have to know what it is. You have to have a very clear identity of who you are, where you want to go, what you want people to think of you. And then from there, we have the tools to then kind of build it around you. The very important thing is when you're developing your profile, if say, for example, you have a relatively good profile in England, but you are not very well known in Ibiza, how do we then make that happen? So what do we engage before that? Obviously, we pull together a different team to make that happen. We engage a different PR on the ground. We get all of these, get the machine rolling so that when it is time for you to be somewhere and play there, there's already buzz, there's already people talking about you, and really.
It's exactly what you said. We take care of a lot of the higher level stuff, so you won't have to. But what Leila said, which is the most important, is at the end of the day, the brand, the internal goal and drive comes from you guys. You have to have a clear idea of what you want and what your message is. Mm-hmm. And then we help you as a vocal piece to present your message to the masses.
Exactly. And whether that's, we might say to you, oh, we want you to do these mixes, we want you to do this and that, we want you to record radio shows, we want to have all of these tools that we then have to work with. And it's also important for the management to then be able to not put all of this out at once. We need to drip feed things into the market at the right time so that, people aren't overwhelmed by you in one moment and then you're gone. It has to have momentum, it builds. And consistency, exactly. And this is where the kind of overarching strategy comes into everything. It's a bit of a kind of dark art, I think.
It's amazing.
That's working behind the scenes.
Sometimes I don't know how they do it.
With management, as we're always looking for ways for you to be making money, to be commercially successful, that's the kind of main point of it. So there's things like, for example, if you're paying DJ sets, it's better for you to be playing your own music rather than other people's music, because then you're getting different royalties for each time. And so as a manager, that's something that we would push you to do. We would say, include this many of your own tracks. Let's kind of build that up until one day you're just playing everything of your own and all that money's yours. And
that's why it's good that the Burn competition is having you guys do everything from DJing to also working on remixes, so you can kind of learn how to do both sides of the musical coin.
I wanted to actually ask you guys a question because it would be interesting to know what you think. So in terms of commercially successful DJs at the moment, who do you think has the strongest brand image?
Richie Houghton, maybe.
Richie Houghton. And
what in my site, in the underground house music, maybe in the.
And so for him, what does his brand tell you? What's the message that you're receiving from that?
He has like a created enter, and I think he has created like an atmosphere here in Ibiza, and I don't know. Many people know the underground scene because of him, so I think he has done a good job.
So he's built his brand on credibility rather than a commercial, glossy pop look.
Yeah.
And then, so any other examples?
Mark Carola, with Musicom.
And then what do you think it is that the message that you're getting from his brand?
It's just brand. He just made a brand out of that show, so he's recognizable around the world with it.
But every brand has a presence and it has a message. So, for example, if you looked at, say, Deadmau5, he has a very, very obviously branded image. you just need to see that logo and you know instantly what it is. You don't need to see any words, you don't need anything. You can see all of the PR that's been made about this car that he's been selling just because it's deadmau5 branded. It's all of these things go into that, and it's obviously that's a kind of very, very obvious example, but it's something that you need to look at. You need to look at how your peers are doing it and what works and what gains people's attention.
I think no one's saying you have to put a mouse head on your head to do
No, not at all.
But the bottom line is that you have to create an image around yourself, because people in the club industry and the clubbers, they want to buy and they want to feed into something. They want to feel a part of something, whether it's associating with a mouse head DJ or music is the answer. You create a brand, and it could be an object, it could be an image, but it could just be a feeling. But you have to kind of learn of who you are as a DJ and then learn how to present it outwards. We can help you, like Leila said, but you have to come up with the original.
And I think as well, this all leads into a really important revenue stream, which is merchandising and brand endorsement. And the more powerful your brand is, the more other companies want to connect with your brand. They're not going to connect with you if looking at you, we don't know what it is. You're not giving a clear message, or it's not powerful enough, or it doesn't connect with people. It's an important thing to think about, and I think it's very important to look at how other people do it, not to copy them, but just to gain insights as to what works, what doesn't, what you would do differently, and use it as a base.
Yeah, but we were actually just talking about this earlier about how, you know, one of the most important financial revenue streams for an artist right now is their touring, because, you know, music as a market is very difficult to sell in that medium, because everything's digital and people are downloading for free, and so it's very hard to make money off of the musical productions. So a lot of DJs are relying on touring, but at some point you get to an age or a health situation or just a tiredness where you go, okay, I really can't DJ this much anymore, and you have to create these other types of revenue streams through marketing and branding, so that way you can make money without having to travel around the world every weekend.
Which has to be the ultimate end goal. But these are things that you should be thinking about in the beginning.
Yeah.
This is the long-term
The
plan.
more things you think about now, the easier it will be, like, down the road when you are needing them.
I have a question. There seems to be a line somewhere between commercial and underground, and I don't know, it's hard to define where it is, but as soon as you start to have a logo as DJ, then it starts to be the commercial side. But there's many successful underground DJs that don't use a logo, but still very successful. But there's something with the signals and the image thing. Again, it's an image to not have a logo. It's an image to not have a deadmau5 hat, not being a part of that side. So I think it's split it up in a bit.
But then you don't have to have a specific logo, but you can have an image that is very clearly yours. So say, for example, in your visual loops that you play in a club, or in branding that you have around a DJ booth, people need to know who you are. And people look at these visual clues to realize, oh, that's so-and-so, you know, and that's how they kind of buy into it. Because you could be kind of an anonymous man behind a DJ booth, but how are you going to build yourself from that? How are people going to start talking about you if it's kind of, oh, did you see that guy? Yeah, he played it too. I don't know who it was. But it's just, you need to have some kind of message as, this is me, this is what I am, this is where you can find my information.
Yeah, and it's true, many DJs might not have a logo or a brand yet, but if you look at all the top DJs, they do. They have not only a logo, but they have their own visuals, they have their own brand, they might have their own label. And as you become bigger, you realize that you need these things to continue in your progression upwards. Otherwise, you can't connect to people as good as you could without it. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Leila can even attest that the way you brand artists in the underground scene is completely different than the way you would brand them in the commercial. I think you have a lot more leeway in the commercial scene to go outlandish and big and try different things. Whereas
you've got to be more clever, I think, in the underground.
In the underground, like you said, with Saltzman or with Music On or even Enter, it's the brands are there, but they're more subtle. It's not as overwhelming and like in your face, but they nonetheless pull you in and help you associate more with that artist and his or her music. Mm-hmm.
I think that team behind Carl Cox, for example, is doing a fantastic job. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also, I think an interesting thing with that kind of visual identity, it's not really changed that much. It may change slightly, it's slightly amended each year, but the core visual presence of it is exactly the same. You know when you look at that, you know what it is and you know what you're going to get, which is, it's important.
Yeah. That's actually a perfect example of someone who's been able to remain consistent, but still grow and grow using his brand.
Because actually, once you get to a certain stage of a brand, it's very difficult to rebrand it as something else. So you need to kind of think, what you choose now, it needs to be adaptable. It needs to be something that can translate into whatever direction you may eventually go, with keeping its core value, but being transferable.
Sure, fluid.
Say,
That's
for
the
example,
thing.
with Pete. So obviously we have Pete Tong the man, we have Pete Tong the DJ, we have Pete Tong the radio person, we have All Gone Pete Tong, the parties. We have all of these different elements that still remain to the core value of Pete Tong, but we can spin off in many different directions. We keep the look and feel of it is very similar, but we slightly adapt it for whatever it is that we're doing. And then immediately, something is very obviously Pete Tong.
Yeah.
It's a tried and tested method that works, and it's something that everybody does.
They changed the medium, but they didn't change the message.
Yeah.
Right? So they found radio, they found events, they found music, but all the same message, all the same artists. So it's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm. I came across the Forbes 2013 list of the highest grossing DJs. Now, obviously, there's a kind of climate at the moment which would make that possible, you know, kind of with what's happening with EDM in America, all that type of thing. So I kind of delved into it a little bit more and looked at what their brand actually encompasses. So obviously, yes, they're live touring in America, but what else is actually behind the scenes that's plugging in all of these different revenue streams? Going up the list, so in at number 10, Steve Aoki, $14 million. When I looked into what he consists of, obviously there's the working with different residencies. He has a restaurant, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He record label, live, branding, radio, all of those things equate to ticket sales, and rest is history. Next one, Cascade, $16 million, which is mainly live and production. So I don't know, what percentage of that do you think is just live?
I think for him at least, from what I can gather, a lot of that is mostly from touring.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about what he does outside of it. I know he's involved in different things, but he's someone that could probably benefit from a stronger look at finding ways to brand himself.
Yeah. Next one up, number 9, Skrillex, $16 million. His revenue streams, live, production, and this is the first person where it's actually listed on the list for music production, which I thought was quite interesting after we had yesterday's topics. Number 8, Armin van Buuren, $17 million. Again, live, production, radio. It's quite interesting when you kind of go through the list. It's all the same things, maybe with an added little bonus on the end, but there seem to be the core live, production, and branding, radio. They're kind of the main things.
Which shows you that the ability to produce music is as important now as it was then ever. I think 10, 15 years ago, you can get away with being a DJ that just played good sets, didn't really do production. But now in the market that we're currently working in, almost everyone's a producer. And in fact, most of the people that are doing really well were producers first and then had to put their hand into DJing so that they could take their music and give it to the crowd.
Mm-hmm. Next on our list, Afrojack in at number 7, $18 million. So we're talking live, we're talking label, we're talking production, we're talking radio. Then the one that we would all expect to be there, number 6, Avicii, $20 million. And that's mainly live and brand.
Lots of branding.
I think he's interesting because obviously he's got the face package, which is incredibly marketable for any brand. Incredibly. I mean, he does modeling, doesn't he? It's obvious his face sells stuff. So therefore, for him, brand endorsements is going to be a huge part of his business. Absolutely huge.
His manager is very, very good at connecting him to the right products and his music to the right situations. I remember that one of his tracks was played at the Super Bowl, which is one of the biggest viewed events in the U.S. So,
We'll have a big fee
yeah.
that goes with it. So moving ahead of Avicii, number 5, we have the famous deadmau5, $25 million. He consists of live, merchandising is a huge part of his business. Huge, because he's got such a recognizable brand. And for him also, licensing is a huge part of his brand, just as licensing your style, licensing the mouse.
The merchandising, it's actually interesting to think about this with respect to his merchandising in particular, is that one, it's a money market, it's a money-driven opportunity for him, but it also helps to promote himself as an artist and a brand, because people then see the mouse ad and think about him. So not only is he making money, but he's promoting his brand.
Mm-hmm. Next one I thought was an interesting one, because they were only counted for the first quarter of the year, because then they broke up, but it was the Swedish House Mafia, and their main income was live.
All that, yeah.
So that's quite interesting, and they were at $25 million for the first quarter of the year. Interesting. Next, number 3, David Guetta, $30 million. His main revenues, live, production, residencies.
He has the Fuck Me I'm Famous brand, which was extremely marketable.
There's the lounge in Ibiza Airport, Fuck Me I'm Famous lounge.
And it's not like a product, it's a concept. Thank you.
Yeah. And these are all creative things that you need to, I mean, if he can put his face to an airport lounge, that's quite amazing. How do you do that? That's clever. Next, number 2, we have Tiesto, $32 million. So for him, live, label, production, radio, merchandising, all of those the big things that you would expect. And then obviously, number 1, as you would expect, Calvin Harris, $46 million. When we put into perspective that Beyonce made $53 million in 2013, I think it's quite astounding.
It shows you the power of the dance music scene.
And also, I think a very interesting thing that was written up on his profile in Forbes was a lot of his revenue has come not from production, but from songwriting for other artists, which, this is, you can be producing tracks and you can be remixing tracks, but actually if you can be writing songs for other people.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, one thing I was going to bring up that I think it would be benefit to explain to everyone is how you would imagine a lot of these branding opportunities come to the way of these artists,
I think that, for these guys, people are going to be banging on your door to brand you, literally. And it can be anything from, I don't know, say it's a certain type of headphones, say that it's sunglasses, say that, I don't know, you always wear a certain brand's t-shirts during your gigs. It's just all of these little niche things that once your profile is big enough for, so I don't know, say you have the right number of Twitter followers, you have the right number of Instagram followers, brands then, you come to their attention and they want their stuff on you because people are going to see it, and it all kind of filters down into the person that's buying your ticket, who is your fan, who wants to emulate something that you have.
So it's always good to be thinking about these things in the back of your head. You might not be able to get those brands' attention right away, but maybe down the line you'll be able to do it because you've been using their product for so long, or you made the connection early on. And sometimes it could be as easy as just writing a letter and sending pictures. Hey, I'm always wearing your shirt at my gigs, and keep sending it. You can get their attention that way.
It's quite interesting. I was watching a documentary about Oasis, obviously famous English band, and Liam Gallagher said that his mum used to work in a bowling alley or something really random, and she found a Burberry jacket, and nobody picked it up, and he was like, I'm having this. And he made a point to wear this Burberry jacket in all of their kind of press shots, anything like that, when they were just coming out, because he wanted to position himself as the type of person that is cool enough to be photographed in brands. And that's a different type of level of brand that you're aiming at. That's a luxury brand. Obviously, this could be a good few years away for you guys, but it's how you want to position yourself, how you want the perception of what your brand represents and what its worth is.
And maybe you don't have a manager who can do this for you now, but you can use things like social media to try and advance it in the beginning stages so that it's easier for the manager down the road.
Exactly. And also, when you're doing social media, your messages need to be consistent, and it needs to be, unless you're kind of planning to be this kind of quirky person, and you need to keep it kind of professional, you need to keep it focused, and you need to think that you're being the voice of your brand.
Yep.
At that moment, you need to be on it 24/7, keeping the messages concise, clear.
Especially with when you're at a show and everyone has their cameras out on you. You never know what's going to end up on YouTube the next day. So.
Exactly. Yeah, well, exactly. You're the best representative of your brand, and if you're badly behaved, we can only shield that so much, and it's damaging to your brand. So, yeah.
So yeah.
Any
So let's see if you
questions?
guys have any questions with respect to agenting or management or branding.
So I was asking myself if really for an agency, what is most important? You have, for example, two producers. One has a really good image, but the other one doesn't have image but does better music than the one that has an image. What DJ would you book for your agency?
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
Which is more important, the musical side of the production or the marketing image of the artist? And I mean, I think they're both important, of course, yes. But I think that in the commercial side of music, I feel that the image that you're presenting is going to be a bit more important. Not saying the music can be bad, the music still has to be good, but you are able to sell yourself a bit more if you have this look and presentation about yourself. Whereas more often in the underground scene, people are paying more attention to the music that you're producing and performing rather than the image that you're portraying. I'm not saying you could show up to your gig in flip-flops and a white beater, but you know, there is a lot more emphasis placed on the music that you're producing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.